You ever feel like the world's got you pinned? Like no matter how hard you try to duck and weave, trouble finds you anyway? That's where Jake Riley was, a lanky kid navigating the halls of Westview High in a small Ohio town, just trying to keep his head down and make it through another day. But some fights, they pick you. And Jake was about to learn that sometimes the loudest backup comes from the most unexpected places. Jake wasn't the kind of kid you'd notice right off. Tall, sure, but always hunched, like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He'd slip through the crowded halls, hoodie up, eyes on the floor, moving too quiet, like he was afraid of taking up space. He wasn't a loner, not exactly, just careful. Careful not to catch the wrong eyes, not to step on the wrong toes. But at Westview, careful didn't cut it. It started small, someone accidentally bumping his shoulder in the hall, his locker getting slammed shut just as he reached for it. A snicker behind his back that cut deeper than he'd admit. By junior year, it wasn't just whispers. His lunch tray got knocked to the floor, his books ended up in the dumpster out back, and once, a bruise bloomed under his sleeve that he hid from his mom, Sarah, who was already working double shifts to keep the lights on. Jake didn't tell her, didn't tell anyone, not even his buddy, Nate, who'd been his friend since they were kids trading Pokemon cards. Telling felt like admitting he was weak, and at Westview, weakness was blood in the water. The worst stretch was the hallway outside chem class, a narrow gauntlet where three guys, Logan, the ringleader with a smile sharp as a switchblade, and his shadows, Carter and Dylan, liked to hold court. They called it tax collection. Jake called it hell. He'd time his walks, waiting for the hall to fill up so he could blend into the crowd. But one Tuesday, the timing was off. "Yo, Riley," Logan called, stepping right into his path. "Forget your toll today?" Carter yanked Jake's backpack, spilling his notebooks across the tile, and Dylan kicked one down the hall, pages flapping like a dying bird. The laughter was instant, phones already out, recording Jake as he knelt, face burning, picking up his stuff. He didn't look up, didn't give them the satisfaction, but inside, something was starting to crack, a slow burn that was one bad day away from exploding. That day came at lunch. Jake sat alone in the cafeteria's far corner, the buzz of voices drowning out his thoughts, his tray untouched. Logan's voice cut through like a knife. "Riley, nice spot, mind if we crash?" They didn't wait for an answer, just dropped their trays, knocking his soda to the floor. Carter smirked, grabbing a fry off Jake's plate. Dylan leaned in, close enough for Jake to smell his cheap cologne. "What's it like, knowing nobody's got your back?" Jake's chest tightened, his knuckles white around his fork. Then, for the first time, he looked up, locked eyes with Logan just for a second, but it was enough. The air shifted, like the room was holding its breath. Logan laughed it off, too loud, too forced, but Jake felt it. A spark, small but real, that something was about to change. Nobody noticed the guy in the corner of the cafeteria that day. He was just some dude in a faded denim jacket, tinkering with the vending machiner, so it looked. Cal, a mechanic who'd seen better days, wasn't there for snacks. His eyes kept drifting to Jake's table, catching the way Logan leaned in, the way Jake's shoulders tensed but didn't break. Cal saw that look in Jake's eyes, that 1 second stare down, and it hit him like a memory he'd buried long ago. He'd been that kid once, the one who took the hits and kept quiet. By the time Jake walked out, Cal was already on his phone, calling an old buddy, Vince, a grizzled biker with a beard like steel wool and a heart bigger than most would guess. "Found a kid who needs us," Cal said, voice low. "He's fighting, but he's fighting alone." The next week, it was raining, a cold drizzle that turned the school's sidewalk slick. Jake pulled his hood up, hoping the weather would keep Logan's crew inside. No such luck. They caught him by the gym, where the overhang offered no cover. Carter shoved him against the brick, hard enough to sting. "Where you running, Riley?" Logan flicked the brim of Jake's hood, smirking. "Look at me when I talk to you." Jake did, just for a moment, and there it was again, that flicker in Logan's eyes, like he wasn't used to being seen. It didn't stop the shove or the laughter, but it planted something in Jake, something stubborn and new. By Thursday, Jake was back at his corner table, the cafeteria loud with the smell of greasy pizza and teenage noise. Logan's voice carried over. "Yo, Riley, still breathing?" The usual laughter followed, but when Carter reached for Jake's milk, Jake's hand shot out, holding it firm. "That's mine," he said, voice steady, not loud. Not angry, just sure. Carter froze, and Logan's laugh was too quick, too sharp. Careful, boys, he's growing claws. They walked off, but the air felt different, like Jake had finally drawn a line in the sand. Across town, in a garage that smelled of oil and rain, Vince picked up his buzzing phone. It was Cal, voice urgent. This kid, Jakihi pushed back today. Stared down the head bully like he was ready to swing. You gotta see it. Vince, a Hell's Angel who'd seen too many fights to count, leaned against his workbench, listening. He'd been Jake once, the kid nobody bet on. Where, he asked. Westview High, Cal said. Vince grabbed his leather vest, the one with the skull and wings that made people cross the street. The call ended, and a plan started to form. The next morning, Jake noticed a black Harley parked across from the school, its rider leaning against it, casual but watchful. The guy didn't move, didn't speak, just nodded once when Jake glanced his way. By the end of the week, that biker, others like it, kept showing up, different spots, different times, always watching. Logan noticed too, and for the first time, his smirk faltered. On Friday, Jake walked out of school to find Logan and his crew by the entrance, ready to pounce. But the rider was there again, helmet off, eyes like steel. Carter started toward Jake, then stopped, glancing at the bike. Logan muttered something, and they backed off. Jake didn't know why, but that night, he couldn't shake the image of that rider's steady gaze. In a smoky garage on the edge of town, Vince and a handful of Hell's Angels sat around a scarred table. Cal leaned against the wall. Kid's got guts, he said. Takes a beating, shows up the next day, and yesterday? He didn't blink. Vince nodded, tapping ash into a can. He didn't need to hear more. This wasn't about pity, it was about respect. Why us? One of the younger bikers asked. Vince's eyes darkened. Because I was that kid. Because nobody else will. The plan was simple. Show up, be seen. Let the bullies feel the weight of eyes that don't back down. No fists, just presence. Monday morning, the air was crisp, the kind of cold that bites your knuckles. Westview High was buzzing as usual until it wasn't. A low rumble started, growing until the sidewalk shook. 8 Harleys rolled up, chrome gleaming, engines purring like a pack of wolves. Students froze, phones out, recording. Logan stopped mid-sentence, his jaw tight. At the front, Vince raised 2 fingers in a lazy salute to Jake, who stood by the steps, rooted to the spot. The bikes looped the block and were gone, but the message lingered in the whispers, in Logan's twitchy glance at the street. By Wednesday, things had shifted. Logan still hung by the lockers, but his jokes were quieter, his swagger dulled. Jake walked the halls without a shove, without a trip. At lunch, Cal caught his eye from the vending machine and gave a slow nod. It wasn't much, but to Jake, it felt like a lifeline. Thursday morning, the real storm hit. The rumble came again, louder, closer. 12 Harleys pulled up, tight formation, Vince at the lead. They didn't race, didn't rev, just rolled in, slow and deliberate, like they owned the street. Students lined the sidewalk, whispering. Logan and his crew stood by the lockers, stiff as boards. Vince swung off his bike, walked to Jake, and handed him a helmet. Morning, he said, voice rough but warm. Jake blinked. I don't have a bike. Vince grinned, just a little. You do now? The riders dismounted, forming a loose half-circle around Jake. No words, no threats, just presence. Vince nodded toward the school. Let's go. Jake hesitated, the crowd watching, but Vince's calm anchored him. They walked through the courtyard, boots heavy, leather creaking, the skull and wings patches catching the sun. Logan tried to blend into the wall, but there was nowhere to hide. Jake caught his eye, saw something new, doubt. Inside, Vince leaned down. We'll be here at the bell. You're not walking out alone. Jake nodded, throat tight, feeling seen, really seen for the first time. At lunch, the cafeteria was electric. Logan strutted in, trying to hold his ground, but the weight of the morning hung over him. Jake walked in, tray steady, and sat down. No one tripped him. No one grabbed his food. Vince appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locked on Logan's table. The silence stretched, heavy. Logan muttered something, grabbed his tray, and left, Carter and Dylan trailing like scolded dogs. Jake didn't smile, didn't gloat, but inside, a knot he'd carried for years started to unravel. When the final bell rang, the Harleys were still there, lined up like a promise. Vince stepped forward. You good? Jake nodded. Better than I've been in a long time. Vince clapped his shoulder, firm but kind. That's the point. The riders rolled out, no fanfare, just a slow fade into the distance, their shadows stretching across the asphalt. Logan and his crew slunk off, quieter than anyone remembered. Jake stood there, the smell of exhaust lingering, knowing something had changed forever. Weeks later, things weren't perfect, but they were possible. Logan still glanced his way, but the shoves, the insults, they were gone. Jake stood taller, walked steadier. Kids who'd ignored him started nodding in the halls. A few even joined him at lunch. One day, he found a note in his locker, just 3 words in blocky handwriting. "We've got you." He tucked it in his wallet, right behind his ID. It wasn't about bikes or leather or even the Hells Angels. It was about knowing someone, anyone, had seen him and decided he was worth standing for. Maybe it was Cal's memory of being that kid. Maybe it was Vince paying a debt to a friend long gone. Maybe it didn't matter. This story isn't just about Jake, it's about what happens when someone decides you're worth fighting for, even if they've got no reason to. It's about the line between justice and revenge, and how sometimes just being seen is enough to tip the scales. What do you think? Did the bikers do the right thing, or did they just trade one kind of fear for another? Drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and let's talk about it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next story about courage, unexpected allies, and the kind of justice that rolls in on 2 wheels.